I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being, and it's going to pay. I think that I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff of my past, and I wasn't able to move on. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
We're about to witness the exact moment when Diddy lost control during day 2 of the trial. Immediately after learning that Justin Bieber had publicly declared his support for Cassie, security had to intervene, and what happened? Next shocked even the judge. The courtroom fell silent as Diddy's composed facade suddenly cracked. His fists clenched, his jaw tightened, and everyone present could feel the tension escalate when Justin Bieber's name echoed through the room.
The you of them was on a path of self-destruction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure. It was dark. So I'm very, very grateful to have influences in my life that have played a huge part in me seeing their relationship with Jesus and their relationship with their wives and their relationship with their kids and saying that's what I want. But I want to definitely tell my story so that if that resonates to anybody, that they can hopefully. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters and
Wow! I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad. Wow, look at your eyes. Look at that, beautiful.
Bieber turned 15, and it suddenly seemed that Hollywood was keen to almost initiate him. I think that's the right word. Like there was almost like this initiation that he needed to go through. So I want you to be now super uncomfortable and watch this video of an interaction between him and none other than Diddy. Take a listen.
Justin, you ever seen the movie For the Times of Their Lives? Like, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher. I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full.
Young Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher, involved with Scooter Braun. Now all of a sudden he's being put in the hands of Diddy, who, it is true, he became the legal guardian for Usher. You can look up all of the allegations of what Diddy did. The allegations are essentially that Diddy very much initiated Usher. As we are going through these lawsuits and Diddy is in prison, we are recognizing that everybody knew. This was an open secret about what Diddy was doing. So it just begs the question, who allowed Justin Bieber to be in the presence of this man, knowing what he was up to, allegedly up to? That seems to be very...
Two began with this strange silence in the courtroom. Diddy entered surrounded by his pricey legal team and appeared confident. But if you looked closely at his eyes, you could see that something was strange. He kept looking around the room as if he was waiting for someone to confront him. In addition to adding more guards at Diddy's table than is customary for a celebrity trial, security wasn't regular that morning. By the aisle, as if they had received a hint that something might happen. Then Cassie entered and everyone's eyes turned. She was wearing a plain black dress with a white collar. Nothing special, but it made a statement. And her friends surrounded her like bodyguards, escorting her to her seat. Diddy with security that was paid with devoted pals. Cassie, incredibly fascinating section in the meantime. The prosecution team was acting very strangely. They kept passing notes and whispering behind folders, and one prosecutor would show something on her. Diddy couldn't stop checking his phone, kept taking it out and scrolling with his thumb. and each time his face darkened. At one point, his lawyer had to reach over and take it from him, tablet to another, and they would both nod as if they had just received the last piece of a puzzle, knowing that something significant was about to happen. Before the judge even showed up, Diddy's primary attorney attempted to calm him down at least 3 times, leaning over and saying something in Diddy's ear while placing his hand on Diddy's shoulder. Diddy wouldn't have it and repeatedly shrugged him off once so forcefully that the attorney had to steady himself on the she was all business on the first day. But today she looked like a principal who had just been informed that the troublemaker was planning something. Her eyes immediately went to Diddy's table, and she whispered something to her clerk that caused him to nod and pick up his phone. As of right now, no one in the room knew that Diddy had seen something on social media. His team attempted to conceal his phone just before the court began, but it was too late because he had already seen what Justin Bieber had posted. The bailiff called everyone to order, and you could feel the tension rising with every word. The jurors must have sensed it too, as they kept staring at one another, perplexed as to why everyone appeared tense, and one even requested water. Her hand was clearly shaking as she took the cup. Diddy sat there with his leg bouncing beneath the table and a vein in his forehead beginning to show. His lawyer kept putting legal papers in front of him in an attempt to divert his attention. But Diddy simply pushed them away and stared straight ahead, his breathing becoming more labored by the second. It was like watching someone try to contain an explosion, and the entire room knew something was going to happen. Diddy's flawless image was ready to collapse in front of the entire courtroom, and everyone was waiting for the inevitable. They had no idea what would trigger him or how horrible it would be when it occurred.
Yeah, so, I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. So, if she ever needs me, just think about how young I was and so impressionable. And you have everybody telling me how awesome I am at all times, and
It's like taking a kid and putting a kid in a room full of nothing but sweets.
Right.
And just saying, I'll be back in 2 days.
Exactly. I just want people to understand, the psychology behind why I potentially could have problems in my life. So.
In time, let's talk about the fact that Combs' co-defendant in a civil case, a case, by the way, that accuses him and this co-defendant, another A-lister, of rape. This guy is once again slamming the attorney behind the case, insisting that he be sanctioned for allegedly not doing his job. We're talking, of course, about Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, once again calling out attorney Tony Busby, calling out his character, more specifically into question, claiming that the Texas attorney's filings have, quote, substantial. Now, we've talked about this before, but basically, a civil lawsuit was filed against Sean Combs on behalf of a Jane Doe who says that she was raped by Combs and another celebrity at a home after the Video Music Awards in 2000.
Of the trial procedures, Justin Bieber detonated a social media bomb that no one saw coming while everyone else was preoccupied with the drama in court. Bieber shocked the music industry with a message he released in support of Cassie. And the entire situation struck particularly hard in that courtroom because Bieber and Diddy had a long history together. You may recall the videos of Bieber attending Diddy's parties as a teenager. Diddy used to refer to himself as Justin's big brother and mentor. And he even boasted about aiding this public declaration felt like the ultimate betrayal in the history of Bieber's career. It wasn't just a general message of love and support. Instead, Bieber wrote about Diddy's reaction and outburst at industry gatherings where he personally observed Diddy's actions toward Cassie. He reported witnessing Diddy hold Cassie's arm too forcefully during a 2015 after-party. He also recounted Diddy interrupting Cassie in the middle of a sentence and speaking on her behalf in interviews. These were direct observations made during the event, not rumors. People in the courthouse hallways congregated in clusters, displaying their phones to one another as the posts went viral during the first court recess. Before re-entering, a court officer had to urge everyone to switch off their smartphones. Legal assistants then printed screenshots for the lawyers to review. Even some jurors appeared perplexed by the rumors circulating the hallway, obviously knowing that something significant had occurred. The post featured this striking vintage image that said it all. Bieber and Cassie at a music event years ago, both of them grinning. However, if you looked at the eyes of Cassie, something was present. "Sorry I didn't speak up sooner," Bieber captioned the photo, adding that he had always admired Cassie's strength. The timing couldn't have been worse for Diddy, as Justin Bieber's 270 million followers witnessed. Within minutes of that post, headlines were already appearing on news websites. Reporters went nuts when a huge, credible star took a stand during an ongoing trial. One woman even rushed out of the courthouse to contact her. It was no longer just celebrity rumors. A reporter from a big network murmured, "Did you see it?" to his colleague across the aisle as another editor was furiously working on her laptop. Everyone realized that this altered the public's perception of this case. The whispers became so loud that one of the thugs had to order everyone to stop talking. They kept pointing at each other's phones as if they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Some people stared at Diddy, wondering whether he knew, while others watched Cassie, who insisted flawless poise despite undoubtedly hearing the noise. Bieber's use of precise language, calling Cassie bold and truthful, made his remarks so impactful. He added that some acts I had seen years prior profoundly disturbed me. But I didn't comprehend he even expressed disappointment in me for failing to see the control dynamics that now appear to be so clear. Upon first seeing the article, Diddy's lawyer, someone had already shown Diddy the screen, and his eyes widened as everyone nearby saw his face change. Another lawyer's phone was whispering quickly for everyone to take all gadgets off the table. It was too late.
18 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to his original mentor. So this is a very big story, and the reason why we should discuss this and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon that we are witnessing. Hollywood Babylon, that is. He did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry. And sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen.
Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that, she can count on me, but at the end of the day, I'm never gonna force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing, and if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted.
I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From who?
Face changed, like someone flipping a switch when he saw Bieber's post. He first displayed a look of complete shock, with his eyes wide and his mouth hanging open. His eyebrows then furrowed as the betrayal hit him. But the most terrifying part was witnessing that turn into rage. With his nostrils flaring and his jaw clenched so tightly that you could almost hear his teeth grinding. Later, a woman sitting 3 rows back told reporters that Diddy's hands began shaking uncontrollably as he attempted to grab some documents. The first real warning sign was when Diddy abruptly stood up. It wasn't your typical, "I need to stretch up." Rather, it was abrupt and aggressive. The bailiff, who had been observing him intently all morning, took a step forward right away. indicating that this wasn't the bailiff's first time dealing with someone who was about to lose it in court. However, Diddy said something that upset everyone at that moment after everything I did for that child. Loyalty meant nothing more than something about consequences, which caused his lawyer to physically grab his arm and yank him back into his seat. The lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear, but Diddy just shook his head, and his breathing became labored and heavy, as if he had just run upstairs. The court sketches from that moment are genuinely upsetting because the artist captured Diddy's expression perfectly, including the bulging eyes and the clenched jaw veins visible in his neck. The lead prosecutor made a subtle hand signal to her assistant, who got up and slipped out the side door right away. Later, we learned that she was instructing their team to prepare a specific witness earlier than planned. Someone who could speak directly to things Bieber had mentioned in his post. The security guards in the room had a silent conversation with just their eyes, and two of them shifted positions. The artist claimed that in her 12 years of covering trials, she had never drawn anyone looking so intense. Diddy's entire demeanor changed during the first day and early that morning. He had been Mr. Cool, sitting up straight, occasionally taking notes and nodding confidently. Now he looked like a different person, constantly fidgeting and running his hand over his face, loosening his tie as if it were choking him. One guard even unclipped something on his belt, not drawing a weapon but making sure he could access it quickly if needed. Then came the moment that made everything worse. The judge wasn't having any of it. So she banged her gavel and ordered an immediate 15-minute recess. But that break only gave Diddy more time to stew. Diddy abruptly slammed his hand on the table, knocking over a water glass that shattered on the floor as people jumped at the noise. He whispered something that the court reporters sitting nearby could clearly hear. "I'll make sure he never works in this town again. Neither of them will." After the recess, something about Cassie had changed. Instead of staring at the floor as she had on the first day, she walked to the witness stand with her shoulders back and her head high, looking directly at the jury members. She didn't try to avoid Diddy's eyes either. Instead, she pretended that he wasn't special enough to worry about her testimony. Diddy was furious as his legal team huddled around him, their faces displaying pure panic, knowing that those 15 minutes would what he needed began with evidence that no one had seen before. The prosecution displayed Diddy's text messages to Cassie, which caused everyone in the courtroom to gasp. In one exchange from 2016, Diddy sent 17 consecutive texts asking why she hadn't picked up her phone. Another showed him requesting her precise whereabouts, even the hotel room she was in. One message said, "That's the deal if you want to keep your career. I need to know where you are every minute." It became so silent in the room that you could hear the fans for the ceiling when I asked why he meant not to question him. He grabbed my arm in front of everyone at the after party and whispered that I would regret it. Cassie testified that Justin Bieber was one of the male artists on Diddy's list of people she was not allowed to speak to in the industry unless he was present. Cassie's judge's reaction and security changes her voice never faltered or trembled, as she explained the pattern of being watched upon and controlled. When the prosecutor asked Cassie why she hadn't come forward sooner, her response hit hard. "Nobody would believe me." He claimed to control who worked in this industry and who didn't. And I witnessed him make calls that ended people's careers. This statement matched exactly what Bieber had just shared online about the monitoring, public control, and private threats. Every detail she provided supported his statement, giving the impression that they had planned stories. One woman was obviously reacted to by two jurors. The shocking moment came when prosecutors played hotel security. Footage from 2018 that showed Cassie attempting to speak to a male artist in a hotel lobby. Diddy then appeared, put his arm around her, and led her away. His body language matched exactly what she had just described. Diddy immediately leaned over to his lawyer, whispering frantically and pointing at the screen as Cassie mentioned specific events with amazing detail, dates, and locations. He was there backstage at the VMAs on March 8, 2017, at the Standard Hotel in New York on June 22, 2017. And in his Miami home on September 12, 2018, every time she selected a date. My phone hasn't stopped with messages from people saying they're ready to tell what they saw, Diddy's lawyer said as she frantically went through his notes, appearing more and more concerned. She also mentioned that other witnesses had been reluctant to speak up, but were now calling her lawyers after witnessing Bieber's support caused Diddy to lose all control. According to Cassie's testimony, Diddy grabbed her aside after she spoke to Bieber at an industry party and said, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." Bieber was now openly endorsing her. Every new element related to Bieber's statement caused him to fidget more, mumble more passionately to his lawyer, and gaze more alarmed. The self-assured music mogul was vanishing in front of everyone.
Weeks after the initial filing, Busby submitted an amended complaint naming Jay-Z as the celebrity who allegedly participated. They wanted copies of these videos for themselves. And I've talked to lawyers about this before. There's a big advantage to having the electronic video, the electronic evidence yourself, right? You don't have to always go over to the other office. You can view the materials on your own. It's a way to better prepare for your defense. And Sean Combs' lawyers argue that under the federal rules of criminal procedure, electronic data that is in the government's possession, Judge Subramanian denied the defense's motion to amend the protective order, but without prejudice, meaning this issue could be revisited. So Subramanian's order reads, quote, "While the government objects to handing the videos over, they provide several options for a defendant to consider that would permit the defense to view the videos, access the information they're looking for, and even allow them to manipulate the video."
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So if she ever needs me, I'm going to be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters, and I just want to protect her, I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Yeah, if she ever needs me, I'm just a call away.
Do you realize how important your story is? Every time I have a conversation with someone who's been through this unique type of experience, I'm searching for some kind of truth that can help.
I commend you for going there and asking the tough questions and the things that people don't want to talk about, and they don't want to go there because it's revealing, and I want people to take a look at my story, and hopefully my words can make.
The situation couldn't get any more dramatic. The prosecutor arrived in the middle of the courtroom holding a folder. "Your Honor, we would want to offer evidence that directly refutes Mr. Combs' assertion that Ms. Ventura made up these accusations." The screens in the room illuminated with text messages between Cassie and Justin Bieber from 2017. And the prosecution focused on one exchange that caused several jurors to lean forward in their seats. Cassie wrote, "I don't know," in one of the messages. She recently took out her tablet and connected it to the courtroom display system. "He keeps an eye on everything and doesn't know what to do anymore," stated. "If I talk to anyone, he'll make sure I never work again." Bieber's reply was, "This isn't normal, Cass. What he's doing isn't okay. You need to talk to someone who can help." Diddy leaped out of his chair as soon as those messages arrived, and everyone jumped when they heard it scraping the floor. His eyes were swollen and his cheeks were flushed. The composed music mogul had vanished entirely. When the lawyer grabbed his arm and tried to pull him back down, he whispered, "Sean, don't do this." Diddy didn't listen, and he shoved his lawyer's hand away so hard that the man staggered backward. "This is all lies," Diddy shouted, pointing at Cassie. "You know damn well that's not what happened," he said, his voice growing louder with each word. "You're making this all up, both of you." The judge banged her gavel 3 times. "Sit down immediately, Mr. Combs, or I will have you removed," she said, her voice cutting through the confusion. The jury watched in complete shock as one older woman in the back row actually covered her mouth with her hand, and a younger man in the front row leaned away from Diddy, physically distancing himself from the outburst. 2 security officers quickly made their way toward the defense table. One of them placed himself between Diddy and Cassie, while the other came up from behind the court reporters. Diddy's attorney yelled in an attempt to take back control, but Diddy was already heading toward the evidence screen and making crazy gestures, pointing to the messages that were created. His voice was now resonating off the walls, indicating that this was a setup. Justin never claimed that the evidence was so damaging to Diddy's case. These 5-year-old messages totally refuted his assertion that Cassie had made up accusations to gain fame or money. Years before bringing any legal action, Cassie had been telling Bieber about the same patterns of behavior, and the judge once again slammed her gavel. She gave the order to remove the jury immediately. As the 12 men and women filed out, the majority of them couldn't stop staring at Diddy, who was still standing and yelling. The security guards moved in, one on each side of him. "Sir, you need to calm down now," one of them said firmly, placing a hand on Diddy's shoulder. For a brief moment, it appeared as though Diddy might actually shove the officer as well, but instead, he fell silent and began to breathe heavily as the damage was done. The controlled image Diddy had maintained for decades had been shattered in front of everyone, and as the security officers, Judge Marlowe didn't hold back. She stood up behind the bench, pointed directly at Diddy, and delivered the smackdown of the century. "Mr. Combs, this is a court of law, not a recording studio. You do not control what happens here." With the jury safely out of the room, the world saw a completely different side of the music mogul, one that gave Cassie's accusations a sudden sense of credibility. "One more outburst like that and I will hold you in contempt," she said, her voice piercing the room like a knife. "You'll spend the rest of this trial in a cell, appearing only when required." She wasn't finished. The judge mandated new security procedures and a psychological evaluation before the hearings the next day. Diddy's lawyers couldn't even talk to him without an officer there, and his phone privileges were fully taken away. Diddy's legal team was huddled in the courtroom corner like a football squad that was 40 points behind. The top attorney continued. One lawyer was frantically making calls, another was shaking his head, and a third was jotting notes, while sometimes gazing up at Diddy with a face that said, "We're in trouble." They knew their case had just taken a hit when the jury returned, and their reactions were unmistakable. An older man who had been taking thorough notes now sat with his arms crossed and his pen untouched. And a middle-aged woman in the front row physically moved her chair slightly away from the defense table. At one point, security didn't mess around for the rest of the day. 2 officers stood directly behind Diddy's chair, not even pretending to be casual anymore. The most telling juror was number 8, a young professional who had smiled at Diddy on the first day, but now wouldn't even look in his direction. Meanwhile, the prosecution team maintained perfect poker faces, but you could tell they were pleased. The lead prosecutor organized her papers calmly, occasionally looking at Diddy with what appeared to be satisfaction. Her assistant even had to conceal a small smile behind her hand. Legal experts in the gallery couldn't contain themselves as another stood at the courtroom door with his hand resting on his belt, making it obvious that they weren't taking any chances with Diddy's actions. In a whisper to the person beside him, a former federal prosecutor said, "He just lost right there." Professors of law who had come to watch the case were scrawling in their notebooks. In another well-known case, a defense lawyer shook his head and mumbled, "Amateur hour." Through it everybody as day 2 came to an end. The contrast between Cassie's complete control and Diddy's complete lack of it was striking. In the morning, Diddy had strutted in like he owned the place, wearing a designer suit and smiling confidently, and shuffled out with his tie loosened, surrounded by lawyers who appeared to have aged 10 years. Cassie was a statue of composure, sitting with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, and an expression of neutrality. The most telling moment occurred when Diaz's lead attorney placed his hand on his client's back to help him leave the courtroom. One afternoon, he shrugged it off, just as he had that morning, but this time it wasn't out of confidence, but rather defeat. What we witnessed in T. That courtroom wasn't just about evidence, but also about character. Cassie remained composed and strong, while Diddy completely broke down when Justin Bieber took her side. Let's face it, the jury witnessed Diddy lose control and threatening. People in public court at that time likely resolved this issue already, regardless of any subsequent proof. The main question now is, who else will speak up? The door is now open for more celebrities to go through in opposition to Diddy after Justin Bieber violated the unwritten celebrity taboo of safeguarding one another.